Well, welcome to this, your 3-minute Wiley Manager crash course on dealing with resistance, Jed. So in the full-length podcast, we talk a lot about how to identify various resistance and how you might be able to work through them. But in this crash course version, we're really going to focus mostly on identifying resistance. Maybe you can give us some dirt on that.
Yeah, I think we kick off the podcast talking about identifying resistance because it doesn't always show up as clearly as you may expect it to, right? It's often a lot more subtle. People aren't going to come up to you and say, "Hey, Bob, I think this idea is stupid," or "Bob, this new direction that we're going in, I'm not bought into this idea."
Jed, I intend to resist you.
Yeah, it doesn't come across that way, right? It comes across in things such as, I don't know, maybe there's just some missed deadlines perhaps that the person isn't quite on top of that you are noticing. It might come across as some procrastination, for example.
Right.
Silence. I mean, we talked about it not being very blunt. They might not be saying much of anything at all, right? So they're just not involved. They're not discussing. They're not engaging. So there's that pocket veto where I'll sit in the meeting and nod my head, but once I leave the meeting, I'm not doing anything, and I'm not calling it out.
Yep. I'll just sit here and sail under the radar, Jed.
So it can be somewhat tricky to identify resistance. It might not be as obvious to you. So if you are in a situation where you're trying to instill some new processes with your team, or there's a project perhaps that you've undertaken, you need to be diligently looking out for or seeking out where the resistance might be surfacing its ugly head so that you can recognize it versus just accepting it as being, that silence, for example, does not mean that somebody's body, and it could in fact be a form of resistance.
Right. So one of the things we do talk about in the full length podcast is okay, well, once you've actually identified these things, what do you actually do about it now? And we roll out the Wiley Manager coaching model, and we sort of run through it, and we say, okay, well, in this particular case, here's how you may begin to address this.
Yeah, I think it's dealing with resistance is something that you need to do via conversations, right? One conversation at a time. You're not going to be able to deal with it by ignoring it, or even coming down from the mountain with a new set of rules you need people to live by. It's one conversation at a time. You need to the way to deal with it is by having a conversation. So we try and walk people again through the coaching model as being a great tool to help you have those coaching moments, those coaching conversations to help people move through and past resistance.
Right on. Well, to get your grab hooks on the full length podcast, you can download it off iTunes or our YouTube channel. Conversely, you can go to www.wileymanager.com, where this and the Wiley Manager coaching model and dealing with resistance and all kinds of other stuff. We've got tons and tons of resources on there, Jed, to help people move through this stuff.
Very good, Bob.
We'll see you next time.